All right. Good afternoon or good evening. It is Wednesday, February the 25th at 5:15 p.m. and the work session of the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners is now in session. Commissioner Rutledge,
Here.
Commissioner Chismar,
Here.
Commissioner Taylor,
Here.
and Commissioner Chance.
Here.
All right, everybody's present this evening, and may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make the motion to approve the agenda for this evening's work session meeting, February the 25th, 2025 at 5:15 p.m.
Thank you so much. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Any comments on the agenda? All right, in that case, Mr. Krantz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For approval of this evening's agenda, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Hopkins, Town Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a report per se, except to notify the commissioners. I did not get an opportunity today to do so. We had an apartment fire on Crocker Drive yesterday. We had 7 families displaced from the building that was impacted. I was not on the call, but my information reported to me was that 7 families were displaced. They actually had been called there twice yesterday. Fire marshal's investigating. Believe the cause may have been electrical, but that's still under investigation. Main thing is nobody was hurt. But in case you get any inquiries, because we've actually had a couple, many of those residences are owned by individuals who rent them out as opposed to apartments. So just, again, nobody hurt, which was the best thing. 7 people displaced being taken care of, and just want to make sure you were aware. Other than that, I have no report, but I will have comments on other stuff further later on.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Mr. Hopkins, no injuries or anything?
No injuries, no, sir.
And this is Hickory Hills.
That's correct.
on that end of
200,
Crocker.
right, 200 block Crocker
Right.
Drive in the apartments.
Yeah, they've had some issues with electrical over the years. They have the old aluminum wiring, which I have some friends who have places there, and they just are trying to make everybody, because insurance, they won't cover the insurance on it, the fire insurance.
Making everybody pigtail their Atlas.
Right. So,
Well, I'm glad no one was hurt. That's the best of all possible
Yep.
news. I'm certainly sorry they have to deal with being displaced. All right, next, our tentative agenda for the town meeting on March the 3rd, which will be at 7 p.m. here in Town Hall. First will be a presentation of certificate of recognition for Dylan France, who's an employee of Sean Boland's Irish Pub.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was brought to my attention 2 ways, social media and also in conversation with Commissioner Taylor. And it was also on the heels of some other things that were occurring in town at the time. And we thought this a great opportunity to recognize one of our town town citizens who worked in the town, who performed a life-saving action. On January the 15th, I believe was the date, this young man was working the bar at Boland's. There was a family having dinner. The male member of the party began choking, stood up. Other people in the room yelled for assistance. Nobody really in the room knew what to do. At this point, the young man from behind the bar stepped up, applied the Heimlich maneuver, dislodged the foreign body airway obstruction. The gentleman started breathing. The bartender went back to his work, and they went back to their meal. EMS was called, but declined service. Bel Air PD was called, but when they found out the object was dislodged en route, they were rerouted to another call. So in speaking with Commissioner Taylor, we opted to, we thought this would be a great recognition for this young man as a member of the business community. Our challenge was, and not that it's necessarily specific or germane to this conversation, is that we don't have a victim. Because of HIPAA, we were not permitted to identify the victim, to ascertain the victim's perspective. However, I was able to track down a Facebook witness, had that gentleman call us. We interviewed him, interviewed the bartender, checked records at DES and EMS records, and I ran into some EMS colleagues who were able to help me, if you will. And we determined that there was enough sufficient evidence to believe that he acted in accordance with how it was reported on Facebook. So with that being said, we've prepared a proclamation. We've invited him and his boss to the meeting Monday night, and we'll extend the invitation to some other downtown businesses whom he has worked for previously as a bartender. So nice little recognition that we'll have for you that night. So.
It's amazing. How often do you get to actually save a life? It's just amazing.
No, the fun part, I felt like a cop again. I was doing all kinds of investigation, digging into backgrounds, and I found my quarry, so it's all good.
Well, Mr. Hopkins, I want to thank you for doing that. I know I sort of dropped this in your lap and said, hey, this would be a really great thing for the town if we could do that. And I sort of set you on your way, and I'm very pleased with what you were able to find, and I really appreciate it. I think this is such a great, it's such a slice of life in small-town Bel Air. And I think it's really important that we recognize these folks and they don't just get lost to the
For sure.
to the hustle and bustle of life.
For sure. I think he's excited. He's very humble, but I think he's also excited. And hopefully there'll be a good turnout of other bar staff, wait staff, and the other businesses. They will be invited for Monday night. Is my hope they'll show up and support him.
Sounds like a great time. After that, we will have the public hearing on ordinance 839-25, followed by the unfinished business of ordinance 839-25. So at this time, if we want to discuss 839-25 further at this work session, I think this would be the appropriate time to do it.
Yes, I mean, I think it's a good bill that we have here. I'm still looking at in the guidelines section, paragraph 2B, going from, instead of 35% to 40% for the, provided that the applicant demonstrates excellence of design. So, we have the 50%, and I think that 10% is sufficient. Additional, the 10% additional, I think is sufficient. And that's what I would like to propose during the next town hall meeting as an amendment.
I tend to lean in that direction as well, to leave it at the 40 and call it a day, as that being plenty of wiggle room for anybody that needs to have that additional percentage.
Mr. Small, could you remind us the square footage that we're talking about when we're talking about mixed-use centers in the legislation?
Square footage, there's no reference to square footage, is that?
I think it's 10,
Oh,
must be a
under
minimum.
the definition, I'm sorry, I was looking at the
Right.
performance
Okay.
standards. Yes, a minimum of 10,000 square feet, and the reason that is the case, so that we can avoid any issues with downtown Main Street, and those are almost, a lot of those are mixed use, but they're so small that it really, I'd like to not have to take them to the planning commission every time they,
And so how are those regulated now, those smaller than 10,000?
they're just used as, like if somebody has let's say a barber shop on the first floor and an apartment on the second floor, if somebody comes in and wants to reoccupy that apartment, they can. There's no real issue with the exception of a building permit if that's necessary. And it's the same thing for the first floor, if there's any need to change the use on the first floor for the commercial, it's really just a use and occupancy permit based upon, whatever the proposed use they have.
I think that makes a great deal of sense. My question is, because I'm still mulling over this 40% versus 35% issue. I'm sympathetic to Commissioner Chismar and the mayor regarding the principle of the underlying designation. I'm also sympathetic to some of the arguments that we've heard regarding the sort of three-story model. So in your opinion, when we're looking at these projects greater than 10,000 square feet, what do you think it would mean for a project to come in at 40% versus 35%? When we're talking about design, I understand this is a very broad question, but when we're looking at design, do you feel as though a three-story building would be pigeonholed at 40%, or like some of the developments that we've seen where they have opportunities to add additional commercial space to meet that footprint, would there be an opportunity for some creative design there? What do you think we would see if we were to enact this?
I think likely, let's say you have a three-story structure, because that's what was referred to in the ECDC several times. If you have a three-story structure and say the first floor or first story is retail, second story is office, and the top story is residential, just assuming those assumptions, then that, and if you're in a commercial zone, that's fine, because more than 50% is being dedicated to commercial. But if you have first floor retail and second and third floor residential, then it's not. Now, what would have to happen is that a portion of one of those second or third floors would have to become commercial or office in order to meet the limitation of 40%. And now, there's different designs. I've seen developments with first and second floor, and then the top floor is less because they
Right.
want to have
Extend that.
terraces for people to walk out on, and we
That's
don't
sort of
count
what I
those.
was getting after.
Yeah, and that was actually done, although the approval expired, on a property at the corner of Bond and Churchville. They had their top floor, they called them penthouses, and they had little terraces all the way around the outside. So the top floor was less square footage than the underlying floors. So there's a lot of different architectural creativity that could happen if it went to 40%.
That's a very helpful answer. Let me ask the mayor, I know you sent out some of these resources. Could you walk us through sort of, because I only had a chance to really glance at these. Okay. Understood. Absolutely. Mr. Small, could you walk us through these resources and what they say about surrounding areas and how they treat the proper mix?
You're talking about Havre de Grace, Aberdeen, and
Harford County?
yeah, those are normally what I go after. Now, there's a lot more of, yes, there's a lot more of those referenced in that matrix that I provided a couple of months ago. But Aberdeen has a mixed-use designation that is applicable to certain zones, and those mixed-use applications rely on the underlying zoning. So a mixed-use center is permitted in the B3, which is relatively straightforward, pretty consistent with what we require, but they also have the IBD, which stands for Integrated Business District, and the TOD, Transit Oriented District. Both of those have specific requirements for a mixed-use center in those zones. So it's not really consistent with what the town does. Then Havre de Grace has actually created a separate district called the Mixed Office Employment Center District, and that is, so they're focusing mixed use on that particular district, and of course they have specific requirements for that. The town and the county are not as, for lack of a better word, restrictive. We have a mixed-use definition. There are performance standards associated with that, and and that can go anywhere where it's permitted. Same with the county. The county has much more, I don't want to say complicated requirements, and probably they should, because they have different applications that are probably the town would not want to entertain. I'm not sure we want to include industrial in our mixed use. But that is something that there is a relationship between what the town does and what the county does in how we apply the code.
It seems to me that the top three sections here, residential uses, service uses, and retail trade uses, are probably the most relevant to us.
Right.
And I'm curious, under residential uses, it says 75% in accordance with B3 or R4 requirements, service 75% B3 or CI, retail 50% B3 or CI. What exactly does that mean when we're talking about the county code?
Well, the way that they look at those is 75%, I think, becomes the max. And so there's a lot of overlap that can be done. So somebody can come in there and do 75% retail or residential uses and only 25% service uses. Or they could do the exact opposite of that, and they would still be good to go with regard to the mixed-use application. So the county is a little bit more relaxed,
Right.
flexible as they apply the code, whereas we are tying that requirement to the comprehensive plan.
Right.
If the comp plan says it's commercial, the majority should be commercial.
Right.
And that's the way, I think, both the town attorney and I have always looked at this, and it's the way the planning commission has looked at it. But certainly, we're open to whatever the planning or the town board would like to see there if they want to, do something a bit different.
Okay, so my last question is, just to make sure I'm understanding this right. In the county, for residential use, you could have something as drastic as 75% residential, 25% some mix of commercial.
Yes.
Okay. And I agree, that's certainly not, we don't want to get that drastic here in town because we want to preserve our commercial space. That's just helpful context, so. All right, I've done enough talking. I'll cede the floor for my other colleagues to weigh in, but thank you, Mr. Small, that was helpful.
Right, and if you want, you can always, the Hartford County zoning regulations aren't as friendly as ours. You have to like scroll through them. But there is more information, and I can also send you copies of this, but it would say, mix of uses, the following percentage of floor area proposed on site as shown on all plans shall not exceed the following. And then it goes down the list of percentages that I provided to you.
I think you did provide those to us earlier.
I did. I didn't,
But-
oh, you have the actual code? Because I didn't send that out. So if you have it, great.
Well, it may have been in our discussions. between
Might have been
you and I,
earlier that I don't
rather than-
remember.
Okay, but not in this go-around, you did not send it out.
Yeah.
Today or yesterday. But anyway. So with that, the county also, they have the minimum lot sizes for their, do they not, according to your table, is that what?
They
it is?
do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they're saying like 5 acres, and same with Havre de Grace as being 5 acres, and
Yep.
we're not saying we're not limiting the lot size
No.
as a minimum.
Most of our lots are so
Right.
small that
Or
5
small. Right.
acres would
It would-
basically preclude,
That'd be half town.
yeah.
Right. So, and that's the difference we have to consider too, about comparing theirs
Right,
with
and
ours.
One of
It's
the things
a
that
little
we
different.
could do, but we decided not to, is that we could base the application of mixed use on the lot size rather than total square footage. But the thought there was you could
Yeah.
have a large lot that doesn't have a lot of square footage, it still gets kind of caught in that net. And
Right.
we thought 10,000 was kind of in the area where kind of lies between major and minor development.
Okay.
So the 10,000 square foot is the total square footage of the building, including all stories?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, it's saying you could avail yourself of this process for the mixed use, if your building's gonna at least be that magnitude.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you would have to go over 10,000 square feet to be considered mixed use.
And I think the way the way it's written, it's building or buildings on
Yes.
a project. It could be multiple buildings, correct?
And that's consistent with all of the other jurisdictions.
Okay.
So in theory, and no project is the same as another. Every project is
Yeah.
different and unique and stands on its own. But in theory, to meet how granular could you get when you're talking about needing to fulfill this 40% requirement? Because if you're talking about a 3-story building, you could either terrace on the top, or you could add a sort of buttress on the side that's extra commercial space. I think we see actually an example of that where, there's a building and then there's a buttress on the side that, when that is added in, meets this formula. So you might have to see more creative
Yes.
design.
In fact, we would demand that if it went below 50%.
Right, and that might, that would be a good thing for the town, unique design that sort of adds to the overall charm of the surrounding area, that kind of architecture. I think that's great. And it doesn't look like it's just sort of a cookie cutter, copy paste.
Yeah, that would not be possible. Well, I hate to even say that, because it's an absolute.
Right,
But
right.
looking at that, I perceive anything below 50% as being extremely, we would look at everything with a fine-tooth comb to
Sure.
make sure that they are going above and beyond. I don't want people to just automatically go there because they can.
Right.
This is something, and one of the very
I share that concern, by the way, because if you'll recall, that was sort of the impetus behind my open space legislation, is I felt everyone was immediately going to fee and lieu
Yes.
because they could.
Right.
And we didn't have a real open space policy anymore. So I sympathize with that concern.
Yeah, and so, so that's where we want to go, and I know that there's one developer that I'm talking to who seems to think that, but they will, if I'm reviewing it, they're going to be going, we're going to put them through the ringer, let's put it that way,
Sure.
if they're going to go below 50%.
And I like the idea that it makes them be creative in their design by having step back so it's not just a box type architecture, it steps back and they have reliefs and stuff. So I think that forces that. The point that you made about forcing them to do that, I think that's a good thing.
And that's one of the things that we looked at when it came to standard on bond. We said, by the way, you can, if you want to get, if you want to go to that height variance, if you don't want to have to do that, you can step back the top floors and you'll be okay. But they wanted to go after that and they didn't get it. So, because, those kind of variances should be hard to get.
Now, Mr. Small, you said, I thought we were in discussions earlier, side discussions we had, there was another change you wanted to make the, where it says demonstrates excellence of design, to make that a little more
Yes.
clear.
Under B of the guidelines,
Right?
it would say no less than whatever percent you choose.
Right.
May be approved by the planning commission, provided the applicant demonstrates excellence of design, harmony, and then what I added was of the proposed use with the neighborhood. And the reason I wanted to ask to put that in was because I thought it was a little vague with the way it sat. Somebody could come in and say, well, we're in harmony, the architecture looks the same.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the use. And if you're a commercial development, surrounded by commercial development, and you want to make more than 50% of your development residential, I'm not sure you're meeting that. And that's something that I think is going to become, or could become, an issue in the future if that section's not included.
Okay.
Also, there was one other item. You want me to go to the next one?
Sure.
Under B, where it says II, a separate plan is submitted showing public amenities provided for all use classification and supported by the intent of the comprehensive plan. We were a little, talking amongst staff, we were saying, well, wait a minute, we have to make sure that they don't promise and then never deliver. And
Okay.
What we want to do is say, we'll leave it up to the planning commission, but we want to be able to hold their feet to the fire that if the planning commission says, you got to provide this day one before you do anything, and that's what happens. Or you have to provide this before you're going to get a use and occupancy permit. So what we said is the planning commission may require any public improvements be completed prior to issuance of a building or use and occupancy permit. It doesn't require them to do that, but if somebody comes in and wants to do that and they're unsure about whether the developer is sincere about moving
Correct.
forward, they may want to say, look, before you get your use and occupancy, you have to have these things done and we have to approve it. Or not the planning commission, but the staff has to approve it.
So you're proposing just adding that sentence on to the end of paragraph 2?
Yes,
I.
under B, yeah.
Right, I. Okay.
I apologize that we didn't include that in the first iteration. It's just sometimes you look at stuff and,
Right, no, I
Things
understand.
come up.
That's perfectly fine. I mean, I don't have any problem with either one of those. I think it adds more clarification. It just,
Neither do I.
so,
As a matter of fact, one of my major concerns about the way that mixed use is trending right now that I think this seeks to correct is that we are seeing very discordant interpretations of what mixed use means, so that we just see sort of uses next to each other without an actual mixing of the uses, which sort of avails itself of the benefits without providing, the punch that it needs to provide. So I appreciate those clarifications as well.
yeah. So, yeah, if we can get those written up for an amendment,
I will talk to Mr. Krantz and
Okay.
we'll work it through.
I think we can do both of those changes as one amendment. Does anybody?
Oh, I agree. It would be one amendment.
I think
To make any changes
Just-
that we're making.
For these two?
For
So
these
we need-
two.
I guess I would also like to see the 40, that could be a separate amendment, or it could be put in part of that other one. If there's some concerns or still undecided, I'd say use it, make it a second amendment.
I think we're probably all going to be in agreement on the two amendments.
Right.
Proposed by Mr. Small, and we still have some non-agreement on the 35 or 40. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. So we will have two amendments.
Yeah, I'd like to hear the public hearing before I weigh in on where I cut on the 35 and 40. I appreciate.
And so would
that.
I. I want to hear some
Yeah.
more
Yeah,
input,
so
but
I don't want to.
Right.
I don't want to commit on that. I want to hear what the, what we hear, what we hear at the hearing, because I think there's merits to both sides of it, you know.
Right.
Both parties have made really good points about it. You know, and I totally agree with strengthening these provisions, you know, the other two, because that gives the planning commission the authority to weigh those things, to weigh in and set down the rules of the road on that. I think that's a pretty good safeguard.
Mhm.
So, but I'm still torn between the 35 and
Right.
40.
understood.
Understood.
And certainly, any drafted amendments that we have, or doesn't mean that that's the way it's going to go at the meeting on the 3rd after
Right.
the public hearing. It's just for convenience for Mr.
Sure.
Krantz and
Yeah,
for us as well.
absolutely.
Right.
I don't want to.
Just to have one in your hip pocket if you need it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on 83925? All right, we'll move on to ordinance 840-25, which is the density requirement. When last we met, we saw a handout that was provided by Mr. Small at Commissioner Taylor's request, detailing some of the densities in the town. And they pretty much floated around 20 dwelling units per acre, with the exception of those, is it B2, I get this wrong, B2 or B2A, downtown, where you have like one apartment, but the lot size is so small, you end up with a density of 33 dwelling units per acre, something like that. So we took that out of the bill, and I think
So we took out the B2,
we took out the B2.
so they don't, right?
Yeah, what Mr.
For
Small's
density.
research provided is that we really have two instances of high density, or I should say, we have high density, very high density with very low yield, which is what we see in B2, where the density is through the roof, but we're only talking about 1, 2, or 3 apartments.
Right.
Or we have lower density with higher yield, which is where we're talking about larger projects, but we're hovering at about that 20 mark. There are a handful that, I think the most is Hearthstone at 22.9, and they of course availed themselves of the 55 and up benefit, and that's how they were able to get just an edge above 20. But even that is still in that, within one standard deviation of that 20 mark. So that, I think that landed on being both appropriate with how the town has experienced growth, but also we looked at the surrounding areas and it was very much well in line with surrounding jurisdictions. So it wouldn't make us, unreasonably less competitive. It would actually be right in line with what we were talking about.
One of the things that I did when I was going through those density applications, I tried to hit, apples, oranges, bananas, all the way through.
Yeah.
And so you have some townhouse communities, those all kind of hover around 14 units, which is good because that's reflective of what we already have in our code. Same with the 20 units per acre with regard to multifamily. And then you're looking at those outliers, which were all downtown. And those are the ones that kind of skyrocket the density because the property is so small.
And so we were left with B2A and B3 where density wasn't regulated. There was no definition of density in our code.
Correct,
And we are adding a density of 20 dwelling units per acre.
correct.
All right.
That was a 2A and 3A we were
Okay.
adding to.
Is that,
Three already had the density.
3 already has that limit,
Limit, and that's why we used the 3, which is the most permissive.
right? Because
uh,
originally, back in 2010,
Zone.
the form-based codes were B2, B2A, B3A, and
Right.
B3 was not included. And that's why I had the density limit.
Mhm.
Since that time, we've kind of added some architectural review to B3 and a few of the other zones, just to make sure that we can control what those things look like. But up until that point, we had folks coming in, Dick Sports, all that, and they were doing whatever their prototype was. And sometimes we may not want that. And so there's a control that,
Right.
that I think this was added several years ago.
And I think that this is a reasonable adaptation to changing times, as some of the older modes of regulating density in these zones are falling out of use in their ability to successfully regulate that density. I think it's prudent to codify a cap, as there are in all the other zones, with the exception of B2, which, as we've already laid out here ad nauseum, there's very good reason for that being the sort of special,
Uncapped, yeah.
but with B2A and B3A, I think it is entirely reasonable to treat it the same as B3, and that is consistent with the development that we see in town, and that's consistent with the regulations that we see in surrounding jurisdictions.
Yes.
So that's where we stand on that one. The only, I think, point of maybe some contention is, I'm sorry, Commissioner Chance. I think the only final point that there's not full agreement on is whether to have 840-25 apply to projects that have planning commission approval, or to have a carve-out.
We get back to the same discussion about planning commission approval, and then if it's been approved, and then we put this in place, I have a problem with that. And I will continue to have a problem with that.
I was certainly aware of your position on that. My position is that the law will take effect when the law takes effect, and those that are on one side of the line, one set of rules applies, and on the other side of the line, other rules apply. There's always a time where the rules change, and there are winners and losers, but I don't see any reason to have a carve-out to specifically benefit any particular project.
I'm not saying any particular project. What I'm saying is that I don't care how many projects were already approved, and then somewhere along the line, the rules get changed. That does not sit well with me.
Understood.
Understood.
All right. Any further discussion on that
Yeah,
point?
I do. I would like to, on this particular issue, again, I'd like to hear what the public hearing before I make a commitment
Sure.
on that. And I would like Mr. Krantz to at least prepare to have ready a proposed amendment that I'd like to make that carves out anybody that has a building permit. Not the first one, the original set of bills had a carve out for people that had planning commission approval. And I'd like to have an amendment ready for carve out for any project that has a building permit before the effective date of the legislation. I haven't made a decision whether to propose that amendment or not, but from an administrative standpoint, Mr. Krantz, I'd like to just to have that ready, because I would like to actually hear the public. I mean, there was a big part of my campaign policy was to slow the process down, and we've done that on this legislation, so that the public has a complete opportunity to know what's coming and has a complete opportunity for a full and fair hearing. And apart from the merits of it, I just am a firm believer that that strengthens our representative form of government to do that. And so that's what I'd like to,
Fair enough, Commissioner
Yeah.
Rutledge. So,
Yeah.
as we all want to hear from the public, and nothing is really final till the vote is cast. But it's nice to give Mr. Krantz an opportunity to have our ducks in a row. All right. Anything further on 840-25?
Yes, a couple things. Kevin, on R3 table 16527 for R3. When you look at semi-detached and two-family dwelling, the way the bill is written, I don't know why we changed it to 8 for the semi-detached, because they're basically the same type of dwelling.
All right, which, I'm sorry, which table?
For R3, 165-27.
You are correct.
That is a
That
good
was something
catch,
that I think
Commissioner
I was on a
Dinsmore.
roll, and I started going down, putting 8 on everything.
Okay.
That
All
was a
right.
good catch. Yeah, that should
Okay.
be 10.
Similar on, I believe it is B3, where we didn't change it. We had semi-detached and townhomes being the same density, where semi-detached and two-family should be the same density. Is that, I thought that's what we were striving for.
Yes.
Okay,
So that would be putting semi-detached down to 10.
down to 10, right,
Yep.
like all the other zones. And then,
Apologize for that.
and then when you look at that the same table, the two-family dwelling minimum lot area, it's 10,000 for all the other zones, but B3, it's 8750 for the two-family.
It's consistent with the single family.
Okay.
The reason being is it's the semi-detached are basically 2 separate lots. So the total must be over 10,000, whereas the two-family with the exception of having 2 doors going through, you're on the same lot. That's the reason why we left it at 8,750.
Okay, but for B2A, I believe B3A, all the other ones are 10,000. It's the consistency aspect wise, 3,
Gotcha.
1, and it's 10,000 for, I'm looking at 2. B2, B1 is 10,000, right. R3 is 10,000.
Now, you're right,
RO is 10.
that's one that must have been there forever. We haven't done any
Right.
work on it, but we can change that to 10,000, so it's consistent with the rest.
Right, I think that's appropriate.
I
So then there would be-
certainly support that.
So then there would be
As do I.
a total of 5 changes to the tables. No, 3 changes to the tables, I'm sorry. On B3, we changed for semi-detached 14 to 10, and the lot size on B3 for two-family to 10,000, and then on R3, we undelete
Undeleded it.
undelete the semi-detached dwelling, put it back to 10. as it
Right.
was. Okay.
And I think those 3 changes can be moved as one amendment. Presuming there is
Okay.
consensus among us that those housekeeping items are
Yeah, I
a
think
good
those
idea.
are just errors that need to be corrected. All right. Well, thank you for that very close reading of it and picking up those 3 things. Anything else on 840-25? All right, under new business, at our next meeting, we will look at Resolution 1246-25, the Armory Fee Schedule Amendment. Mr. Krantz, is that you?
Yep, thank you very much. Ms. Julia Potler, our events manager, helped us draft these recommendations for you to review this evening. And these are a just simple, small adjustment to the individual or business rates that are currently at $150 per hour for the Sunday through Thursday rentals at a 6-hour minimum of the Armory. From taking that from 150 to 160, and then the Monday through Wednesday 3-hour minimum rate of 75 and moving that to 85. The only other recommended anomaly was, it seems that the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is a very, 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 very popular date to rent. So we recommend that that gets the regular rate of $160 an hour, 6-hour minimum across the board, regardless of who might be renting it. Typically, that's reserved for individual and business, but we also recommend to apply that to either government or nonprofit, only for that particular day, that Wednesday before Thanksgiving. These were last amended, if we go back and look, the prices were back on Resolution 1180 in 2022. So February 2022 is the last time we did this, and and prior to that, well, I didn't bring the one prior to that. So there you go. So it's been a handful of years, and we've had we did have a long time renter, if you will, Harford County Public Schools, to decide to move out of the basement of the Armory at the end of this school year. So this is a small increase to maybe recoup a little bit of that annual revenue that we've had for a handful of years now, maybe even longer than that. But we're leaving on good terms, that they just needed to find a facility that better fit their needs.
Do we know how far this will go in recouping that loss? You know, do we think it'll be about?
Not a lot. Not a lot.
Not a lot.
Not a
Okay.
lot. But we were very cautious.
Well, an hour.
Yeah. We're very cautious because I think we are still the best deal,
Sure.
if you will,
Absolutely.
in the town of Bel Air for a meeting venue of this size. We might not have the atmosphere, since it is a converted gymnasium, you know, that some of the other venues in the surrounding, 5 to 15 mile radius may have. But nevertheless, we wanted to be true to our commitment of it also being a community center, not necessarily a wedding venue or
Right.
an event venue or a concert venue. We wanted to always be known as a community center so we can have such wonderful events like we've had in the past, even like the free events that are sometimes offered to the community that were so popular this past weekend. We wanted to remain true to that mission, I think, of it being a community center first and foremost, and not necessarily trying to pigeonhole it as a revenue driver, if you will, for the town of Bel Air. It really, at least my personal opinions, it shouldn't be thought of as that, because there's so many beneficial uses of it by whether it's government or nonprofit, as well as private uses and weddings and people who've done really well there too.
Absolutely.
I
Commissioner
wanted to take up for the ambiance. I have seen it beautifully decorated for some weddings.
That's
and,
true.
And where else can you have a castle?
That's true.
Commissioner Taylor, to add on to Mike's point, we have been looking pretty much since the school board and I had discussed the joint MOU for the building. We've been looking at other alternative uses for that basement floor. There's a lot of pro and cons, and it's a challenge for us to find a good client for that basement. So certainly this will make up some revenue, but we're still woefully behind in how we want to use that basement floor. We haven't really landed on a good use, nor have we thought of a good client. So we'll continue to pursue that if it's at all possible, but this is the next best option for us for right now.
Any further questions on the Armory fee schedule amendments? Nope. All right, next we have Laura, who's here again with the bicycle and pedestrian plan. It's a little warmer out today, Laura. I think spring is in the air.
Yes. It's very nice weather out today. It's nice to be able to go out without a jacket. So, I'm not sure why it's not showing up on the large screen. Sounds good. Not that I have a whole lot to show. I just wanted to pull up the plan again in case you all had anything in particular you wanted to look at, but we had Cheryl make the requested changes to the draft that Jake had emailed in, as well as your all's previous feedback. So with just a few minor grammatical things left to be fixed, it will be ready for the next meeting on Monday for you all to accept the plan as part of the resolution.
And can we get a, and you may have already sent this, can we get the most recent update file to read and look at before the
Sure, I
meeting
could
on
do that.
Monday?
That's
Thank
no
you.
problem. I did want to also note one other thing that had gotten omitted from the previous draft I'd sent you is in Appendix E. We had an additional diagram showing the different types of bike lanes that we had referenced in the introductory paragraph. But that other than that, that's the only, and then your comments is the only changes. But yes, I'm happy to email that to everyone.
Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
So
And
Laura,
that
you-
would happen as part of what you would have to accept anyway, so that would go out before
For
the
the
end of the week.
meeting.
yeah, so last Thursday, you sent out an email with I've attached the latest draft of the bike pedestrian plan. Is that still the latest draft?
It is, yes. Although I can send the one, like I said, that has the, well, actually, no, it's not then, because we had a new draft with Jake's comments added.
Okay.
And then there's a couple of small grammatical things in that draft. So we do have one draft later.
So Jake, so there's no surprises. What's the nature of your comments?
Consistent with my request at the most recent work session we held on this, I asked that the tone of any reference to bike lanes be turned from declaratory to evaluatory.
Okay.
So instead of saying the board, wishes for bike lanes to be built here, the board wants to evaluate bike lanes here.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that. Sounds reasonable.
Great. Any more questions for Laura? Thank you, Laura, very
Well,
much. for all
if
your
I
hard
could
work.
just,
Absolutely.
I just want to thank you very much. I think I'd sent you an email telling you I thought it was an excellent job. Great job on the revisions and wrestling with all that formatting so it still looks beautiful. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for working with us on this.
You're welcome.
All right. Next is the Commissioner Liaison Reports, and I did go through the calendar to see what meetings there were between the last work session on February the 11th and today, and the tree committee was supposed to have met on February 12th, but it was postponed due to weather to tomorrow. The Bel Air Downtown Alliance and Cultural Arts have met, and both of those are Commissioner Chance.
The Cultural Arts Commission is working on a historic walking tour. They have received a grant for $4,500 to put that together. And Angela, if you want to speak a little bit about that, that would be great.
Sure. There will be, I'm working in partnership with the planning department, who has previously had a paper brochure for the historic walking tour, and we're proposing with this grant funding to do a GIS-based map that's very similar to the public art tour. We were able to get funding through Harford County Tourism to do that project, and it will modernize that tour, 2 different parts, a 30-minute walk that's has 11 stops on it, and a 60-minute walk with 14 stops on it. We did also use additional town funding that actually wasn't Cultural Arts Commission, but just through our marketing account to add an audio component to that to make it more accessible to our residents and visitors, and to provide additional historic information about those properties.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, the Cultural Arts Board is one of the events that's coming up on March the 29th is Take a Chance on Art, and that is going to be at the Armory from 6 o'clock until 9 o'clock. And tickets can become available through, once again, Angela's department.
It's a very aptly named event.
Yes, I think it is.
Yes, and those tickets are actually, that's an event that is done by Hartford Artists Association. Tickets are available at the gallery of Hartford Artists Association in Armory Marketplace. The Cultural Arts Commission, and the reason Commissioner Chance mentioned them as part of that event, is that they do use their performing and visual arts sponsorship program to sponsor the Armory rental fee for Hartford Artists Association. So Hartford Artists Association put in an application to receive funding for the Armory rental fee, and Cultural Arts did support that event and has for the past number of recent years.
I
It is a
think-
great event. It's a lot of
Thank you.
fun.
Thank you. And one other thing I think we mentioned once before, one of my things that I've been thrilled about the addition on this building and the upgrade of that, but one thing I don't like about it is that big green box out front. And so the Cultural Arts Board has looked at that and said, what can we do with that to make it better? And Kevin, I'm going to put you on the spot on this one.
I had noticed that big green box long before this building opened, and we actually reached out to BGE and said, we want to paint this. And at that time, I was thinking about doing it, but that's fine with me if you want to. But what that does is, I'm hoping, is that it will tone that all down. And I've saved that email if you ever need it, because I don't want them showing up saying, well, you can't do that.
That's right.
Because I've got an email that says so.
Yeah.
Just to add a little bit to that, as Commissioner Chance alluded, we do have that big green box, and at Kevin's design, and initially, like he said, he had planned to do that, we did hire a local artist to paint that box, and it will be painted with grasses that are similar to what's planted around Town Hall, so that hopefully it will just blend in with the background. So it will just be a natural landscape look to it.
A good comparison might be if anybody's been to the Schleyer Pavilion, there's an electrical box on the back. But if you're in the parking lot, you really can't tell that there's an electrical box because it's been painted like stone, which is the backdrop to the pavilion.
We're all hoping that this will help tone that look down, but I also have to say thank you, Kevin, for your initiative and the design as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all on cultural arts, but the Alliance has another event coming up April 5th called Dunnigan Speakeasy, and tickets are on sale for that. And, before you know it, First Fridays will be going strong starting May 2nd. And one other committee that I work with too is the Senior and Citizens in Need. And they are working very hard on putting together a survey to put out to seniors and citizens in need about what are their needs. It's lengthy, but I think also covers a lot of area that I think will be helpful to the town to address some of the needs that our citizens have. And that's it for me.
I think that's a great idea, to go directly to the people you want to serve and ask them what it is that they need. So can't wait to see the results from that. All right, next we have the staffing update.
Can I,
Oh, yes,
can I make a
absolutely,
comment?
absolutely.
It wasn't a liaison report, but we did have the concept meeting for the mall. Is that something we should discuss? Yeah, I mean, I think it was well attended, let's put it that way. That room was packed. Eddie and the staff and all, they dealt with all the infrastructure issues and things of that nature that they had. A lot of the interesting comments were about the design that they proposed and the walkability, and a big concern is there's still no master plan that they proposed. Basically, the concept was tearing down Macy's and a little bit more of the mall, and then it was about 7 buildings?
About that, yeah.
About 7 buildings arranged in that parking lot, and all that would now be vacated by Macy's. And my comments were, I didn't think it was a very integrated design. you know, there was, you couldn't get from one place to the other, I felt, without going across parking lots, walking through the parking lots to get from one place to the other. But, you know, so that was a lot of comments. A lot of comments were on that aspect of it. Mary, you also attended, and you had some,
Well,
what were your thoughts on that
Um,
in your comments?
We're in the beginning of that design. I don't think I would say that this is set in stone. Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong.
This is their first offering
Right.
Right.
to, and I
That's
think
right.
they got an earful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did. And I think back on being in other or not mall, but places like that. Sometimes you do walk through a parking lot to get to the store over there that you'd like to visit or whatever. So I'm not too worried about that. I think they did hear what was said, and but there certainly were. It was well attended in terms of, you know, from the county level, and we talked about water and sewer and all
Right.
kinds of things. So all of that. So we are going to have, I believe, a wonderful facility, a wonderful layout for people to shop and live and enjoy the area. So it will take some time, but I think eventually we'll get to the right place. So they listened, and I was appreciative of that.
It
Right.
fulfilled the intent of what the concept committee meetings are. That's for them to hear from the town and the county and various agencies, and it's for us to hear what they intend to do. And hopefully they can go back and make the appropriate changes.
Mhm.
I think it's important for us, this is my 2 cents, I think it's important for us to prevail upon them, and, you know, the cart may have been put before the horse on this one, and I won't comment on that, but it's important to prevail upon them that if they're accessing the benefits of the mixed-use provision of the code, and they've already had their residential component approved, I think the town deserves a pretty bang-up commercial component as the other end of that bargain. And that's just my personal opinion. And again,
Yeah.
like I said, the cart sort of got put before the horse, but that's where we are, and that's what
Right.
the hand we've been dealt. So I appreciate your leadership, Commissioner Chismar. I appreciate your leadership, Director Small, in making sure that we get an integrated design, that the benefit of that mixed use means mixed use.
Right.
And that we really get a top-of-the-line project out of that.
Yeah, and I said that, in the words that I said, that we've been supporting this mall since 1972, this community, very well. I mean, we are a very vibrant community with several awards we've just gotten with, you know, best place to retire to and all that. So we're a very vibrant community, and I told them we deserve a world-class design. You know, and we also, I think it's very important that we have a master plan that takes out, because right now they're still leaving all the small spaces. Major stores of the mall in this Phase 3 design is still there. And they say they can't get rid of the leases until, they won't have full control of the mall, they said, until 28. But we need to look at, forget that, wipe the slate clean, what's your proposal? I think that's very important, because you don't design in pieces and build in pieces. You design the entity, the whole thing, and then you build in pieces. Because you back yourself into bad decisions because you design just a little piece of it, and now you go to design the next piece, and, like, you know, you've limited your options. And you come up with suboptimal designs. That's my feeling, and I think we need to, hold them to the fire, but we need to see what your whole concept is. Because, to tell you the truth, the concept they showed us in Phase 2 has looked nothing like what their Phase 3 design was, nothing like it. Because Phase 2, the one they showed in Phase 2 had a lot of open space, and there was no open space in the Phase 3 design. So, that's my 2 cents.
So I'll make your 2 cents 4 cents. So just to add on to what Commissioner Chismar said, I did have the opportunity to have 2 meet and greets with their group. One several weeks ago by telephone and Teams call, and one recently. Jeff Garrison, who was there, big tall gentleman, had not been privy to our previous meetings. He asked, "What are you looking for?" And I went right to your comments, and I said, "We're looking for a master plan." They're going to want to hear, what is your long-term solution for this issue? Now, as he alluded to in the meeting, they're obviously supposed to be bringing a well-known organic grocery store in. to which he couldn't identify, but pretty much everyone figured it out. His hope is that it will bring, to your point, Mr. Taylor, his hope is that it will bring stores that typically follow that level of other store. And then that will play into the grocery store at the other end of the mall. So understandably, and Kevin's taught me this, I know they paint an excellent picture. Whether or not the finished product will resemble that, they certainly, in the last 3 to 4 occasions that I've talked to them, either in person or on a conference call, their story has been consistent. To your point, they're building the barn after the horse has gotten away. They really should be the other way around. But their stories, at least for me, have been consistent. But we did I echoed your comments to them, you echoed your comments to them. Commissioner Chan said the same thing. So they've heard it from at least 4 of us, what we want. We'll see what they deliver.
And there was, planning commission
They
was
heard it
also.
from Kevin, too.
I was probably less subtle. But it was one of those things where we have seen, after seeing that master plan during phase 2,
Yeah.
and now seeing what we're being shown, we're going to be looking at that with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that what they're proposing is correct. And I will say this, as far as cart before the horse, all of the performance standards that are applicable to the comments that were made at that concept committee meeting were in the performance standards for mixed use, and they all relate to making sure that service areas are screened, the pedestrian, there's no conflicts between, or minimize conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians, that the connectivity from all the elements on the project are for as far as the pedestrian connections are shown on there. I think that, to be honest, I think they were a little unprepared for the comments that they received. So I'm hoping that they are able to move forward with what they've got. They should have a very clear picture from what everyone has
Right.
provided them,
I hope so,
including the
too.
folks from the Planning
Right.
Commission.
To add this 6th sense in, Kevin and I met yesterday just to go over our normal monthly meeting stuff. And one of the things that is on my to-do list while he is gone is to schedule a Teams meeting. There is we currently are up to 4 lawyers involved in the Hartford Mall project. For 2 reasons, I will certainly communicate the commissioner's concerns. Not that the lawyers can do anything, but if they're smart, they'll try to talk to their clients. There is a whole list of things that the town has properly and quickly provided to the developers as far as development documents and trying to formulate all of the legal requirements between phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And it's kind of been one of those things where, hurry up, let's go, and then we react and we provide it in a reasonable fashion to continue to move the project forward, and then it just dies for months on end. And this is with respect to, I guess it would be phase 2 is residential, right?
Phase 2.
Okay, so this has been, like, nothing has happened. So one of my orders from Kevin is to basically hit the whip and go like, look, you're coming in, you've come in for a concept plan on phase 3. You're gonna hit a wall, because what we're gonna say is, because it starts to get very complicated, right? You have conditions on phase 1, you have conditions on phase 2, how they may mesh together, what part may amend another, and we don't want to go down that road. Let's get done 1, let's get done 2, and move on to 3. So I just wanted to let you know that we are staying on top of them and trying to move the project forward. And obviously what they submit is what they submit, but at one point, Kevin and I kind of talked about this, like, they're going to have to stop, because we can't move forward until they do what they have promised to do over and over. We'll get it back to you, we'll get it back to you, get it back to you, and then we just don't hear anything. So, and or they come back with more changes, or somebody, a lawyer will drop off the face of the planet. So there's a lot of stuff going on that we are still working on, and that's one of my to-do lists, is to get on them and be like, listen, this needs to move. You're going to move or you're not. And if you're not going to move, phase 3 is not going to move. So, you know, that will probably spur them along. But I will communicate your comments to the attorneys for Harford Mall, Shops at Harford. I think there's 2 lawyers for actually Harford Mall, right? There's 2 lawyers for Harford Mall, and I'll let them know for you guys. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for that update. All right. Staffing update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have one position still actively advertised on our website for a Deputy Director of Planning. It's listed as open until filled, so we're still accepting resumes and applications. However, we have started the interview process. We interviewed a couple good candidates today, and we have 3 or 4 more candidates scheduled in the next 2 weeks. We've also received notice that
Mr. Krantz, how many total applicants do you have? Just curious.
24 approximately.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Quite a
maybe,
bit few,
maybe a little
okay.
less than that, maybe 12.5.
President Trump may have helped with that.
It's true. It's true. But we do have a handful of very qualified applicants with actual planning or engineering experience. So we're trying to get through those prioritized first. We did receive notice just yesterday that one of our recording secretaries has decided to resign. It's not Jane. It's Pam. But I have to extend a lot of thanks to Pam. She's absolutely a consummate professional, a wonderful person to work with, and she's given us a tremendous amount of notice. She's going to work through June, and then she'll stop in July. So I just
Okay.
wanted to say that in this meeting. So if anybody knows somebody who wants to be a recording secretary, it's a tedious and detail-oriented job, and you do have to have an ear and an eye for detail. I just posted the bid because it's a contractual position. It's not an employee of the town, it's a contractor of the town. So I just posted the bid on the website, and you'll see some advertisements I'll put out on the web as well as social media in the upcoming days here. But just planting a seed in case you know somebody who might be interested in being a contractual recording secretary. We do have the job bid for police officer did close. We've got a mountain of applicants that the police department is going through, and I know we have a couple candidates that they're considering at this time. So
Is that an entry-level position required to go through the academies?
when we post the police officer position, we post it as recruits. We're accepting recruits who we would put through the academy, but we also show a preference for a lateral officer who might want to
Either way.
a lateral in from
Good.
an existing agency, allied agency.
Or recently retired officer with a
Thank you.
valid Maryland Police Training Commission certification.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sounds good.
All right. Anything else?
That's it.
All right.
Could I just chime in here? Like, we've got an opening now on the Historic Preservation Commission with the resignation of Keith Smithson. So, that is, I wanted to bring it to the commissioner's attention because, you know, any recommendations that any of you have are welcome. So, I don't have a candidate in mind right now. I don't have anybody who's been lobbying me about it.
And this is one of the town resident seats?
It is a town resident seat. Okay.
Does that accurately describe the circumstances, Kevin? Okay, good.
Do we still have a quorum
Yes.
with town residents? Okay, we still have a quorum. Okay. We'll get the word out.
I was going to mention while we were on Historic Pres that, looking for the hearing date, March the 6th, yes, at 1 o'clock. So I will be attending that. If anyone from Historic Pres wants to submit written testimony or appear in person, or you can do it remotely as well. They could certainly, do that if they were interested. But I will definitely be there in person.
And that date again, Madam Chair?
It was March the 6th at 1 p.m. in Annapolis. But you can submit written, and you can also appear remotely.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
they take all flavors of testimony. All right. Next is the calendar. I know we all got a new updated calendar. I can't believe that spring is on the calendar finally. It is coming. So if anybody notices anything that's missing or needs to be added,
Madam Chair, I do have 3 calendar entries, but I'll defer to the commissioners and go last.
I think you can go first while everybody else is looking at the calendar, because so far I don't see anybody jumping up to make any additions.
Just wanted to make 3 calendar items that, one upcoming and two upcoming, rather, and one in the distant future. So Bush 250, most of you, I think, received invitations from the county. We are working through David Anderson. We're co-promoting that, that whole weekend, helping to support and bring awareness and attendance to it. It sounds like a really cool event they have laid out, but just wanted to remind you that that has been offered to you all if you would like to attend. I believe 2 of the events have a registration and a fee attached, and the 3rd event is a tour around Harford County to various sites. So just to make you aware. Tomorrow night,
Those are-
I'm sorry,
When are those, Mr.
the
Humphrey?
last weekend in March.
Okay.
Yeah, 20,
So 22nd and 21st, 22nd, and 23rd.
yes. It'd be, yeah,
Yeah.
20, it's not the last weekend, Steve, it'd be the 3rd weekend,
Yeah,
4th
got it.
weekend.
I was trying to
Um,
find it on the calendar, I couldn't find it.
It is on the calendar,
Yeah.
just wanted to.
Right, no, it
remind
is, I
everyone, so.
just couldn't, that was a me issue.
Tomorrow night, just a reminder that for 2 of the commissioners, we have your Municipal Citizens Academies presentation. I don't know who has volunteered to be there,
I have volunteered to do that.
right?
There you go.
Okay, sounds good. You'll have a captive audience. You'll be splitting the evening with Mike and I, but you guys get to go first so you can get done. Have roughly an hour and 10 minutes or so, but obviously you can go longer. But our classes have been running very well. They've been finishing on time with lots of good questions, very interested people. And I didn't pay Tim Stipler for his comments last week. Appreciated them, but didn't pay, but they're very engaging. And then the last thing I wanted to bring to your attention for the calendar, this is a few months out, but the weekend of June 8th is the Army's 250th celebration. My team and I have been working with Bob Brown, who represents County Executive Classy on Veteran Affairs. If you recall, there was a lot of moving parts to this early on that got promoted and then canceled. Well, they have landed on a concert, and they're going to partner with the Susquehanna Symphony Orchestra here on June the 8th. Governor Moore will be in attendance. The commanding general from the Proving Ground will be in attendance, as well as if any of you or all of you would like to attend. Mike and I have discussed doing a proclamation for this, but we'll do the proclamation at the town hall meeting. I think the proclamation would get lost in the events that are occurring that night, and would have greater attention drawn to it if we present it to the Major General here. So Mike and I will construct that, prepare that for you all. But then, so far, they've only had 3 people giving remarks. That's the county executive, the Major General, and Governor Moore. And Governor Moore is still tentative. I don't have an indication, whereas a town official, that you have been invited yet to give remarks. But they will do the concert. They'll also be doing an enlistment ceremony to try and sign people and swear them in. And the Army will have a number of displays, including most likely a Black Hawk or an Apache helicopter. So we'll be walking a footprint in a couple weeks with them to lay out a footprint for them to work within. There'll also be a VIP tent there, which obviously you all will be invited to participate and be in, where you can get some one-on-one time with some of the other VIPs in attendance. So more to follow. Just want to get that locked on your calendar. It's a Sunday night, June the 8th. Starts around 6 p.m. I would recommend getting here a little bit sooner than that. And I'll have more details to follow at future work sessions.
Are we going to be able to get rides in the helicopter?
I will see what I can do. That's if it doesn't blow the equipment away that's down at the other end of the field.
All
Madam
right.
Chair.
Thank you.
I do have one other event for the calendar, and that is a cultural arts sponsored event that they've organized. That's an evening with Ain't Misbehavin' Big Band, and that is for March 26th at 6:30 at the Armory. And tickets are $10 a piece and available on the Arts and Entertainment District website.
Well, thank you for that addition.
Mhm.
All right. So if anybody notices anything else missing or incorrect on the calendar, do let everyone know. And now we are up to miscellaneous, the rescinding of the Rockfield Manor sprinkler design contract.
Madam Chair, that's a combination of myself and Director Klein. I'll go first and then turn it over to him. So all the commissioners are aware, and staff as well. You and I had spoke several weeks ago after the Rockfield presented the status of the new building, and the conversation really focused on the cost involved in sprinklering the building, which at that time, per code, as we were advised, was required to be sprinklered. You had questioned, good questions about whether or not it needed to be sprinklered. There might have been some confusion between their engineers and so forth. Steve Klein and I worked pretty diligently on this for several weeks, dug into it pretty deep, talking to the county inspectors and other folks, had several meetings. And I'll let him explain that detail, but my point of this is, since I offered it, will be advising the commissioners, we will be rescinding we've actually terminated and rescinded the contract with KCI. As Steve will say in more detail in just a minute, it is determined that the building will still meet code and not required to be sprinklered. But we are rescinding that contract with KCI. We were only a few hours or a few days into the contract. I know Mr. Dawson is here. I don't believe we've incurred any cost as a result of that contract, but they are aware. So with that, I'd like to defer to Director Klein. He'll have the nuts and bolts, pun intended, from the codes.
Certainly.
Thank you, Eddie. After we learned that there might be a workaround of some sort with the requirement of the sprinkler system, I called a meeting of the major stakeholders on Wednesday, February the 19th. Those stakeholders were Paul Edding, Chair, Eddie Hopkins, Town Administrator, Rich Truitt, who is the Director of Harford County Inspections, Licenses, and Permits, who is basically the town's consultant for building permit, Donna Dickey, who is the Rockfield Foundation, Paul Thompson, who's the project architect, Charlie Dawson, of course, is Deputy Director of Public Works for the town, and I also included Chrissy Mullaney, my buildings permits clerk. During the meeting, Rich Truitt suggested that applying the international existing building code instead of the international building code, combined with the fact that building was reclassified as a commercial occupancy in 2000, may provide a legal path to exempting the project from the sprinkler system requirement. So the matter right now is in the hands of the project's architect, Paul Thompson, who must provide a justification under this new interpretation. If he submits revised plans with a rationale that satisfies our consultants, Harford County Inspections, Licenses, and Permits will approve the building permit without requiring the installation of a sprinkler system. I don't want to speak for Eddie, but I believe I know how he feels. I'm much more comfortable with this approach, as it eliminates any liability for the town by ensuring we are not responsible for waiving a code requirement as we had previously been asked to do so. So we feel much better about this. So, however, I'm prepared to sign the use and occupancy permit after consultation with Harford County once construction is complete. I would have preferred the installation of the sprinkler system. And I truly feel that at one day in the years to come, if we are able to round up some resources, we should really look to sprinkler that building. I was thinking about today, it's probably a $3 million building, and it's a gem for Bel Air, and it would be just horrible if something nasty happened that could be prevented with a sprinkler system. I know it's tough right now with the time of the essence of getting everything completed, and the resources aren't all there, but as the town's building official, I hope we can do something in the future. And that's basically where we are. So hopefully, within the next week or two, Paul will get his new submittal to Rich Truitt. Rich will review and make the decision if he feels that enough was satisfied to meet the new code, and we'll move on for that. And then I will sign a use and occupancy when the building is complete.
Thank you, Mr. Klein.
Is
And
there any questions on that?
Certainly, the town was never going to waive a code requirement,
Right.
never.
So as part of that, we'll make sure that there's really sufficient egresses out of all aspects of the building.
Yes, and it also includes, in some of the strategy that they've got to prepare, they've got to prepare strategies with more sounding and
Sa-
so forth, lighting
right.
and alarming and things of that nature.
Alarms and, right.
Yes, so they will have to
Upgrade.
upgrade that for the project.
Right.
Now, that's in the kind of the equation to get to the point where
Right.
it doesn't require the sprinkler system anymore.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. It could save everyone a lot of money,
Yep.
as long as we can provide a safe environment.
All right, anything further on the Rockville Manor sprinkler design contract? Nope. All right, next, commissioners' comments. I'm going to go first because I know Laura is sitting here waiting for this one. Unfortunate timing has required us to sort of, this is due by Friday, the Maryland Historical Trust. We sign this every year, Laura? That's what I thought. And we are going to agree to jointly apply for the Certified Local Government Education and Training Grant application with Harford County and the City of Havre de Grace for the Commission Assistance and Mentoring Program known as CAMP Training offered by the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. So if everyone is in agreement that we should go ahead and sign this, I will sign it on our behalf, and Laura can go merrily on her way and meet her Friday deadline.
Sounds
So-
good.
Yeah. Does this require matching funds, this grant, or anything? No, it's not Okay.
We do it every year. It's
Do it
just
every
that the timing every year is kind of bad, and we are a little behind the
Right.
times. But
No, looks good.
if you hand that up to me, Laura, I'll sign it right now.
Look at this, some live action.
That's it. Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any comments?
Yes, I do. I wanted to commend our Department of Economic Development on another ribbon cutting successfully completed. This one for a really unique business, Chocolate Moonshine on Main Street, which has moved into the old Tommy's on Main, which is a wonderful space. I was a little bit disappointed to find out that the moonshine cooks out of the chocolate. But it should nonetheless be a really wonderful addition to our vibrant Main Street community. It was on the same day that Bel Air was named one of the top 6 eclectic small towns in Maryland, and I found that really on the nose because what's more eclectic than a shop called Chocolate Moonshine? So they've got some wonderful products. They have a great team operating it, family owned and operated. The son of the 2 owners is the store manager, just a wonderful group. And I'm really excited to see all that they'll bring the Main Street corridor and the greater town. And of course, as always, kudos to your department for another very well-run ribbon cutting, even against the bitter cold as we did it inside.
Yes, we did. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
I was very, very sorry to miss that ribbon cutting.
You missed a good one.
They gave away a lot of really yummy goodies. It was wonderful.
You are making me feel even worse
I
about
know,
missing
you'll
that
have to
ribbon
stop
cutting.
by.
I will.
So Angela, I noticed on Main Street, Lavaliers is going to get a new vendor, the graphics art that's, no?
No.
Okay.
Um, There is signage up
Right.
in the front window, but it is advertising a new location for you, brand yourself, on South Main Street in the 300 block. 300? 600?
Oh,
Now I can't remember the new address.
but they were
I believe
previously
it
on
might be
Bond
the
Street, right?
600. I believe it's the 600 block. They were previously on Bond Street.
Just
and-
down from the
Correct.
Kynes gas station.
Correct, and
Right.
they are moving to South Main Street, closer to Idlewild, McPhail.
Okay.
Yep,
I
so
don't know,
just
was
their
driving by,
signage.
saw the sign, it's all I
I
could glimpse.
understand.
And I'm
It's
like, wow, that's a lot
confusing.
smaller space than what they moved from.
Correct, it is
what are they
confusing,
doing?
but they are just advertising
Right.
their new location at the old Lavalier.
Okay.
Steve, if it makes you feel any better, I thought the same thing. Yeah, I thought, oh, great, but then Angela corrected me, yeah. So, but it would be so wonderful to have some of these shops on Main Street filled.
Maybe one day we will have a sign in that window
Yes.
with a new occupant.
Madam Chair, also, you had asked me to look into Walgreens, so I made contact with General Services. General Services was unaware the building was for sale. So that certainly created questions among their staff down there that now they need to go back and find out what's going on. So the sign's up, but DGS was unaware. But for us, fortunately for us, their DGS's representative lives in Bel Air. So she's going to make a drive-by, grab a snapshot of the picture, what have you, and then look into it. So subject to non-disclosures, I may find, she may be able to tell me, or maybe she might give me some indication, but I'll find out in a couple of weeks.
Whatever the answer is, I was just surprised to see a for sale sign because I thought it was part of the new district court block. And to see a for sale sign up there, I thought, well, that's strange, so. Well, there you go.
Was it not part of the new courthouse?
No,
But-
all the properties, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, did I step over you?
Mm.
Did I speak over you? I'm sorry. Yes, Walgreens, I was told from the get-go that that entire block, all four
Right.
businesses were part of the original purchase. However, as the purchase moved on, there was discussion about the usability of Walgreens and whether or not it was worthwhile. But it didn't fall off the table. So, yes, it was part of the project, but they've been negotiating with the property owner who has had that building for decades.
Right.
And Walgreens had at that time still a 15-year lease pending.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
The things you learn just driving around town. All right. Any other comments from anyone? In that case, could I have a motion to move us into closed session?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that this portion of the meeting will be closed under the provisions of the Maryland Open Meetings Act General Provisions, Article 3, Section 305, B7 and 8. The topics of discussion will be to obtain legal advice and consult with staff about potential litigation regarding the Tollgate Marketplace Sewer Agreement Deed of Easement, to discuss and seek legal advice on the State of Maryland Capital Projects Grant Agreement re Rockfield Manor, and to discuss and seek legal advice on the County Parking Garage Hickory Flats Parking Lease Agreement allegation of breach of contract. The reasons for closed session discussion of the above topics will be because public discussion of confidential information and/or legal strategies can compromise the attorney-client privilege and inhibit the ability of the public body to receive candid and uninhibited legal guidance.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion of this motion? All right, in that case, Mr. Krantz.
This is the vote to move the the work session into closed session. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance.
Aye.
And Chair Edding.
Aye.
Okay, we'll be moving into closed session, and I believe,
We will not be conducting any further public business. We will be adjourning after the closed session.
thank you. As a result, we will end the YouTube live stream here momentarily.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to keep Director Small, Director Moody, Director Klein, Director Robertson if she can stay, and I can free up Chief Moore.